maybe just more than selections, but we have some more stragglers. But just like making that like an essential ingredient in interactive concerts. I was wondering if you could like talk and or demonstrate to that end, if that makes any sense at all.
Sure, sure. Absolutely. We can do that.
We just had Christina pop in, who is a pianist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Christina.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
It's okay.
Where are you, Christina?
I'm in South Florida near Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, yeah, cool. Not cool, but I mean, cool.
The weather is not cool, no.
Great. Well, listen. Why don't we go ahead and get started?
Sure.
I guess one question that I have is, do you have your instruments available?
Yes.
All right. Christina, do you have a piano there?
Yeah, but not in my room.
Okay. Is it a problem to get to it, or is it like being used with other people, or?
I think we're going to...
I have a dog, and I was trying to avoid the dog, but I can go to my piano.
You mean the dog likes the piano so much? Is that it? The dog plays the piano all the time? Is that why you can't practice?
I'm not saying I can't practice. I still want to disturb you guys.
I would love to see your dog personally, but...
Okay, I'm at my piano.
All right, beautiful. Yeah, great. Because I just thought it'd be good to warm up a little bit, and we'll do that. Elliot, do you have your violin? Okay, cool. I mean, we're in different places, but we're gonna latency and all. We're gonna play a little bit together for the sake of playing together, and so we should tune, right? I mean, I think we have two pianos, so we're hoping that our pianos are close to each other. They'll have to be close enough, right?
It's not gonna be good.
Is it really low? Here's my A. What's your A?
Years.
And there's Marina. What does Marina play? Marina, what do you play?
Hi, I play viola.
Viola, great. Do you have your viola?
Yeah, actually, it's over there, but
Want to grab it?
sure.
We're just tuning up.
Sweet.
How you doing? Matt, is your A you got an A?
I'll mute myself. Yeah, keep A. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. So we're gonna place behind muted mic for a little bit, but then actually we are gonna unmute. So try to be in a place where you can, unmute yourself. At least grab the mute button back and forth. We're gonna, of course, we've got latency to deal with. So we will acknowledge the latency, and that's fine. And so we'll do a kind of an environmental improv. It's really simple. I'm going to play a descending tetrachord. I'm just going to play the notes D, C natural, B flat, and A. And I'm going to play them really, really slow, right? Really slow. So that it's sort of, I mean, if you begin to feel a pulse, try not to. And so I'll play a few times through that cycle, and you can just noodle, just play a little bit against that descending tetrachord bass line. That's like a chaconne, right? And so you're gonna play a little bit, and once we've kind of warmed up the instrument and just our ears and all that kind of stuff, then we will start going around. Matthew, you're going to be first. Okay, you'll go first, followed by Carly, and then Elliot, and then Marina, and then Christina. Why don't you be last? Okay, since we have two dueling pianos. Okay, but I won't be improvising in the upper register, so it's all yours, right?
Sorry. So just to be clear,
Yeah.
are you going to vamp the bass line for a little bit, and then I'll just come in?
Oh yeah, I'm going to vamp endlessly. I'm going to
Okay.
vamp and vamp for vamping's sake.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Oh boy.
Just to do a little bit of okay. All right, Marina, you're just checking in. Is that it? Okay. We'll be sorry to lose you, but there you go. In your audio settings on Zoom, right? Just to make sure that these things that we're all cool about it. One, that when you get there, you should make sure that where it says suppress background noise, that it's on low, right? It's low, medium, and high, and you want to do low, the lowest possible. And I think everybody probably has the version that has music and professional audio. So you can check off high fidelity music mode, right? Echo cancellation, and then stereo audio. You can do all those things, right? And additionally, you should also have on your, when you go back to your window, it should say original sound off or on, right? And you actually want it to say off because that means that it's on. It's counterintuitive, but there we are. Okay, so original sound off. Can you hear that, D? You hear that? Yes? Okay. All right. So here we go. So again, go ahead and mute for Matthew. Go ahead and mute now. So you have some time to just noodle without any latency issues, right? Just so you can, okay, so here we go. It's that slow, right? Okay, so go ahead and give it a whirl. Here's your D. Great, Matthew. Carly, can you take the next one? Here we go.
Absolutely.
Great, and then you just mute Matthew. And the A. Here we go. Ready? Nice. Elliot. You're up, Elliot. Do one more, Elliot. Right. Christina, you're on mute. Everybody on me. Let's do one together. It'll be clear. It's all right. 1, 2, up. We just have to play together. I just feel like it's important to play together. Remember that we play these things called. Are you getting to play some together with people in person?
Yeah. I actually got back from a gig this morning over on campus. So
Yeah. Feels so nice to sing together, play together, whatever it is. It's really. We're having the same thing here with the Carnegie Hall National Youth Orchestra. They're meeting together, and many of them have not played with other musicians for a very, very long time. So it's very emotional getting back to playing again. It's great. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of things just in the chat that I'm going to ask you to do, and really the goal of this session, right, is to try to help you think about what you might want to do in these interactive solo concerts, right? What might you do? And so I want to start by asking you a little bit about, audience and goals. Really important to think about those two things. So we're going to start with audience, right? And I know there are probably practical considerations involved here, and you may already, in fact, have particular audiences in mind, and I'll ask you about that. But if you could wake up tomorrow and play an interactive solo concert for an audience somewhere in the community around you, where would that be and why? So I want you to write two things. One is, what would that audience be? Where would they be situated? And why would you like to play for that audience, right? So what's your ideal audience in a way? And why is that? Why would you like to do an interactive solo concert for that audience? And if you could put it into the chat, but do me a favor, don't hit send yet. Hold off on send, just type it in. And then we'll, in a second, we'll actually we'll do a simultaneous 4-part reveal here. And give me a thumbs up once you got it, once you've typed it in. That's okay. It's all right, Christina. Don't worry about it. No worries. No worries.
I did it
That's
from instinct.
Yeah. It's interesting, but Christina, everybody else, once you've got yours, you can go ahead and hit send. That's good. Christina, just to say, I work with a group of artists in Norway, in Stavanger, Norway, which is kind of on the west coast of Norway, about an hour or so from Oslo. And they have a whole series of performances that they have been doing that's called Dances in the Garden, where they go from house to house, and they actually do this with young children, and they do improvised dance and movement and theater with families at their houses, right? But specifically in their garden in the summer. And so the idea of like doing families and children, in their house is it's a beautiful idea, you know? And it's also just to say people are developing these practices in interesting places around the world, including Norway. Nice. So Carly, a group home or residential facility, that's interesting. And have you been to one before, or have you worked with one before?
I have. I had an uncle who lived in one for a while until he passed, and I've also worked with like younger children who would be going into group homes once they graduated from high school.
Nice.
Never played with one though.
Nice. Cool. All right, so Matthew, you're going for the Gen Zers, huh?
Yeah, I just had a lot of experience with that particular demographic, just because I had a twin sister and just a lot of friends that age, and I get on classical music soapboxes with them, and we talk about music a lot. That's really, I don't really initiate the soapboxes. Like, we won't be talking about one particular thing, and I'll say, oh, and this. But I mean, I've just known that we as a demographic are pretty receptive to music, and I'd like a chance to share that classical music is just as neat as the other genres.
Yeah, nice. Nice. And then Elliot, you'd like to, your ideal audience is a school. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I'm here in Charleston. This is where I grew up, and the Charleston Symphony Orchestra the CSO principal players did a quartet concert when I was in second grade, and from that moment on, that group and many other members of the Charleston Symphony were invited every year to my school to play, and mainly it's because there was a connection between my music teacher there and the members there. But that is where, at least I felt as though that was where I was largely influenced by different kinds of classical music, not just Beethoven, or the four Bs, but many different genres as well. And so I think that's where a lot of the creativity takes place.
Nice. Now, Elliot, I'm from Charleston too, right?
Wait, you live in Charleston?
I'm from Charleston. I was born and raised in Charleston. So we have to sorry guys, but where do you live in Charleston? Come on, Elliot.
Oh my goodness. I live in West Ashley.
Yeah, see, I'm a Wando kid. I grew up in Mount Pleasant. But my father, worked in Charleston. In fact, I'm doing a concert with the Charleston Symphony this year. So Yuri Becker is a good friend. Yeah, Yuri's a good friend, and I think Erica Kramer and I. This is one of the things we talked about because her folks are in the band too. So
Yuri was my violin teacher, and he's my mentor.
Awesome. Yeah, Yuri's great. Yeah.
And he was the one who actually came to my school when I heard them perform for the first time, and when I was smaller, and he was much younger.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm headed down to do a teacher workshop for the education concerts of the Charleston Symphony in September. So I'll be there soon.
Wow.
Yeah, nice. You're west of the Ashley, huh?
Yeah, I should come down to see you.
All right, awesome. Did you go to the art school there? Is that where you went to Arts High School?
I went to Ashley River Creative Arts for elementary school, and then School of the Arts in North Charleston.
Sure. Yeah, School of the Arts. Awesome. Good for you. Excellent. Okay, so these are all great, and what's nice is that there's great diversity, right? We have families and young children in Christina's scenario. We've got, basically college students in Matthew's scenario. We've got, I don't know what the age of the people in the residential facility might, but they might be older people. I know I've worked in homeless shelters for that are transitional housing for older adults. With mental illness before, and that's a very interesting population to work with. And then we've got Elliot thinking about schools and school-age kids. So it's a very nice variety. So one more little chat thing to do, which is, can you in the chat, and again, we'll do the same thing, right? Type it in, and then we'll share. Can you try to articulate 1 to 2 headline goals for your work? In other words, Matthew, you began to talk about it in terms of what your goal would be with those college age students, your soapbox, right? You began to talk about that. So I want you to just now put this in the language of, here's what I want to achieve, here's what I want to accomplish, right? And same thing for you, Elliot, and for you, Christina. You articulated this in this last, a little bit of it in your last paragraph, Christina. So maybe it's just kind of rephrasing it in a certain way. All right, but everybody, 1 to 2 of your most important goals in working with this audience, and then give me thumbs up when you got it. Take a moment.
Sorry, I think I sent mine a little early.
It's okay. It's okay.
On accident.
Christina's not alone. Makes her feel better. Yeah, Elliot, it actually, that's all what all the research shows about contemporary audiences, is that most of the people who really come to clubs and to concerts and enjoy music had some experience. Like 85% of them had some experience with choosing and going with an instrument when they were younger. So a very large part of that. Of our audiences, the ones that we play for, have some experience with an instrument, even if it was only for a year or two, in their elementary or middle school years. Carly, you got yours? Good. Matthew, are you good? Still typing?
Yeah, almost.
Okay. No, take your time.
Okay.
Great. All right, so let's everybody now hit send and give us your number 2, Elliot, if you have a number 2. And read everybody's, okay? Now make sure you just read everybody's. Great, Carly, that's beautiful. I like this idea about finding meaning. I think that's really, really important and not easy to achieve, but good. But good. Cool. And Christina, I like the idea of kind of getting conversations going in the family. That's nice. Nice idea. Cool. Okay. All right. So hang on to these goals. These are really important and really good. I think, when thinking about the concert that you're, or the solo interaction that you might be designing, these are very important to kind of have in the background, and to begin to think about, how you're going to plant seeds within the concert to make that happen. And so I want to start with the one that Elliot sort of leaked out first, which is this idea of stimulating interest in a particular instrument, right? And let's do a little group brainstorming around that idea. Let's help Elliot, right? So one thing is that Elliot is bringing a violin, right, to his solo interaction. We know that, right, because it's his instrument. And so, it's the most logical one to focus on. But what are some things that Elliot might be able to do? Remember, he's working with young people at the school, and we don't have to name, it can be, let's say for the moment, it's elementary school, just to give ourselves a container. Say we'll do K to 5, right? It could be kind of anywhere in there. But what are some things that Elliot could do, right, to engender interest in that particular instrument, in the string instruments as a family, but also the violin? Yeah, Matthew.
So I think, I don't know, it might be cool if you could attach a pickup and maybe a loop pedal too, and like solo some pop songs that are popular with the kid folk.
Okay, so one thing, right? Yes, you could make it. You could make your instrument cool by using some gear, right? That's interesting. I don't know if you know, but were you there for Spoleto, Elliot? Were you around during Spoleto?
I could not get any tickets to anything. Everything was sold out.
Well, I'll tell you that, a friend of mine who's a composer named Jessica Meyer this year she was the composer in residence for the Chamber Music Festival there. And she has written a lot of pieces for loop pedal and viola. So Matthew, heads up. It's called Pieces of Joy. I don't know if you know Jessica Meyer, violist. But anyway, so her Pieces of Joy is for loop pedal and viola, and it's awesome. If you should check it out. If you have a loop pedal, you should play it. It's a really great piece. Okay, so that's one idea. Thank you, Matthew. One idea is, you could, in a sense, connect your instrument to the world of technology and use that in performance. That's a cool idea. What are some other ideas that Elliot could try? And Elliot, you can contribute too. Carly.
I was going to say anything hands-on, because a lot of times when you're going and playing for kids like this, if they just see you with an instrument, if they're not familiar with it, they're going to say, oh, that's cool, I really want to do that. And if you can involve them in, further that interest a little bit. I know instrument petting zoos are popular. If you have the means to do that, you could bring some extra instruments and let them play them after the performance. Or even if not, if you just let them come up and pluck a string on your violin, or set their hand on it and feel the vibrations, or demonstrate a couple of different techniques to them, just show them how it produces sound and how it works, to sort of feed into their interest in that way.
Beautiful, Carly. And Elliot, just to say, right, this is something that I've seen in a lot of really great instrument demos that orchestra members from around the country have done, which is that they will invest in a couple of really crappy instruments that they're not worried about being passed around in groups of young children or anybody really, and the tactile nature of that is I think Carly has a good point. It's a really good possibility, and sometimes it can just be like just borrowing the instrument, borrowing a crappier instrument from somebody for the moment in order to do that, so that while they're watching you and hearing you play, they can also have the experience of seeing what the instrument actually looks and feels like, and they can actually touch it. So that's a great suggestion, Carly. What else? Christina.
I'm not sure how successful this would be, but I had this idea where together you could create some kind of short story with the kids, and each character could be represented by something played on the violin. So together can make the story, and then maybe there's an emotion, and then Elliot or the violinist could. I think my internet just lagged, but like through the violin, then he could try to emulate that emotion, and then I guess try to bring in elements that are kind of abstract and connect it to words that and feelings they know.
Great, thank you, Christina. That's terrific, and this I think applies for everybody. Is to think about in your interactive solo, in your engagement with your audience, what is the opportunity for you and the audience to collaborate? How can you collaborate on something? It can be really simple, like Carly, if you're in a residential facility, it can be as simple as a sing-along. A song, right, that might be well known to the generation of people that you're working with there. So, maybe you're doing a musical theater song from the 60s or 70s, or, I don't know. I mean, it can be, a lot of different things. But a sing-along is a collaboration, right? That is a kind of collaboration. And what Christina is pointing to, I think, Elliot, is what's the collaborative moment in the concert, and maybe it could involve characters, it could involve some improvisation on your part. It could be sort of putting something together in a narrative moment in the piece, and it could be based on a piece of repertoire. You could go, kind of into repertoire to find something that would be easily translatable in that way. But regardless of your audience, whether it's elementary school or older adults, or what's the collaboration? What is the thing that you can do together with your audience, and is there a moment where they can contribute ideas and see those ideas responded to in the concert itself or in the interaction itself? Matthew, thinking again about the viola, and I know you have talked about David Wallace and his work, but one of the things that I've seen David do with great and it being very effective, is using a Baroque melody that is not ornamented in any way, teaching the audience a little bit about the difference between a trill and a mordant and a turn, and then having the audience make choices about which notes in the melody can be decorated, can be embellished. And so in a way, like putting the audience in charge of the embellishment of the tune. And then, once that interaction has taken place and they've been a little creative and you've been able to respond to their ideas, then play the piece of repertoire. If it's a piece of Bach or Bieber or whoever it is, play that piece of repertoire kind of like in your own way. But it gives the audience a chance to kind of come into your process and be a musician for a little bit, be a creative musician. And so thinking about that too, how can you collaborate with the audience in different ways? And those are just a couple of examples. Elliot, I'm going to push you one more way. What's another way that you could, with your audience, help with this? Remember, your goal is to stimulate interest in the violin or in a particular instrument.
Well, I was kind of thinking about what you said with the interactive performance aspect, where they play spare instruments or crappy instruments that musicians buy. So I'm thinking maybe also explaining the components of that instrument by doing a little show and tell. So more specifically, I could say, like, I could buy rosin or another bow and kind of pass that around, or show them how to hold that bow or how to rosin it. And so there's not just the, I guess, the performance aspect of playing the instrument, but actually how we prepare to perform or make adjustments in performance. So
great. And once you said rosin up the bow, then it's almost like you have to play a fiddle tune after that. I don't know. You have to might have to play a little Appalachian folk tune after that. I'm not sure. Cool. Great. So that's an example, right, of how you can take a goal and then try to make it real, right? Make it real in the concert itself. So that's looking for that interactive moment, I think is really important, and it's also important to think about its placement in the concert. Generally speaking, I try to save or place those interactive moments about 2/3 of the way through a concert. In other words, you've played some things, you've done some things with them, they've gained a little knowledge of you, a little trust, and then you can ask them to do something that's a little bit, out of the box, a little bit out of the norm of a conventional sort of concert. Christina, you're in their living room, so in a way, I think you can be quite free. With the idea of playing with convention, because you're in their living room. You're having a good time with them and it's pretty informal to begin with. Elliot might have a larger group because once we bring a musician into school, generally speaking, it's hard for the audience to be less than about 20, and usually it's going to be more. Right, so you're playing for an assembly or a group of students in a particular grade or whatever it is. Then we start to get into the hundreds, and so you have to kind of think about organizing the event a little bit differently. But so that interactive moment is really important, and you do also want to think about the concert as having an arc. Right, as having its own story. Great concert planners think about this, like how does the repertoire build in certain ways, and then people also thinking about what's dessert, what's the encore, right? What's the fun thing that you do, like after you've done the big meaty, whatever it is, piece of repertoire. What's the bit of fun, and it can have some interaction too. That's your way of saying goodbye to the group. So you want to kind of give it, think in the same way that a chef thinks about a great meal, right? What is the appetizer? What's the next dish? What's the entree or the main dish, right? What's going to cleanse the palate? And then how do we give them dessert and say goodnight? All those things I think are important in an interaction like this as well. So you want to plan it with that sort of an arc. Okay. Let's think about repertoire. Let's think about some specific pieces, right? Because with any of the pieces that you're doing in a concert like this, you always want to be thinking, and probably Eric Booth has talked to you about the concept, or at least I'm assuming that he probably has mentioned the concept of the entry point, and that maybe you've read about it a little bit, right? But what is an entry point, right? Just to review, right? It's that way in. It's the hunch. It's the bet that the artist is making. This is a way in which I think you might, relate to the piece of music that I'm offering you. Matthew, as you said, like maybe the loop pedal is a way in for some people. Maybe in a way like that's the entry point. It's just like, ooh, that's cool, right? That you're using a loop pedal and kind of like, ooh, that's intriguing. Maybe that's the loop pedal, but maybe the entry point is something different, right? Maybe it has more to do with the narrative aspect of the piece, or the image that inspired it, or something that about the piece from your own personal experience having learned it and played it. Maybe there's something in that you think the audience might relate to. So with any piece of repertoire, you want to be thinking about the entry point. Given this concert, I'd like you all to pick a piece of repertoire that you could imagine playing, Carly, playing for your adult group, right, in the residential home, right? Matthew, thinking about those what are you going to want to play for them, I've just been thinking a lot with the University of Wisconsin about their terrace. They do a lot of informal musical performances out on the terrace, where there's, I think, a Rathskeller where mostly people drink beer. So there's more beer drinking than music listening going on primarily, right? But they're all college students, right? So if you're playing to that audience, like what's a piece of repertoire that you think they would really get into? Same for Elliot and for Christina. Think of a specific piece of repertoire, and can you put that into the chat? What's the piece you imagine playing that, like, no matter how you end up programming the concert, this piece is going to be on it. This piece would be really a great one to play for the audience that you've articulated. So what's the piece? And you don't have to wait on it. Once you have the piece, just hit send. But everybody needs a piece to think about. All right, the toccata and fugue, Elliot, I love it. Who transcribed it for violin?
It's a violinist named Stuart Carlson. He studied with, I can't remember which violinist at Michigan.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he wrote an arrangement for it.
Cool, and so do you have it in your rep now?
Yeah, it's actually in my room right now. I just got it in the mail.
Wait a minute, you just got the piece in the mail, or you?
I got the piece in the mail, yes.
Okay, but you haven't learned it yet.
No.
No, but you're gonna.
Are you asking us if something that we learned?
No, it's okay. I'm just asking. I'm wanting to know. I'm just wanting to know whether this is something that, like, you've can play from memory, or if it's something you're gonna learn. I just am interested. Yeah.
Yeah, this is something I'm going to learn, like, very, very soon for the
Awesome.
fall. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. I love the Ligeti Solo Sonata. That is a fabulous piece. Carly, can you just say for a moment why?
Why? Well,
Why do you think they would love it?
if they would love it. Well, first of all, when I was saying group home, I was thinking more of like disabled adults, recovering addicts, homeless shelters, that more so than like elder care facilities, because I would pick something different for that. I have played for those. But it deals with kind of difficult subject matter, but it's still very pleasant to listen to in a way that's different from a lot of Ligeti's other music, and I think that's interesting. And just the conversational aspect of the first movement and how the two movements contrast so much also serve for some very good entry points into understanding music more broadly.
Beautiful. When you say subject matter, can you just say a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, well, it has to do with the story behind the piece. It's unrequited love, effectively, which is a popular theme in romantic music. But the story with it is that the first movement was written while he was still in conservatory, like years before the second one, and the second one later was commissioned by another cellist, and he put them together into one piece. But the theme of the first movement is just that he was absolutely infatuated with a cellist who went to his music school, but he felt like he just couldn't admit it. So he didn't say anything about it, and it's just this abstract idea of having a conversation with someone in your head, but it's not actually happening, you're just imagining it happening. And that's how you get the conversational trade-off in the first movement. It's him imagining something.
That's so great. Yeah, it's interesting, having worked in again in one of the homeless shelters that I did, which was in my neighborhood in Manhattan. The adults there were all like obsessed with love. I mean, romantic love. And I didn't realize how much it was on their minds. I mean, I think I came in thinking, well, they're older adults and they're going to be thinking about, the legacy of their lives and their families and things like that. And mostly they were just thinking about love and sex. I mean, there was a lot of love and sex in their lives, and I thought that was kind of interesting and fascinating. And they ended up writing a lot of love songs in their 70s and 80s. It was interesting. Also, do you know that Rodgers and Hart song, "Unrequited love's a bore, and I've got it pretty bad, but for someone you adore, it's a pleasure to be sad"? Anyway, I always think of that song because it's a great little quatrain by Larry Hart. Okay, that's beautiful, Carly. The Tchaikovsky album for the young.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I thought maybe Schumann's Kinderszenen could work too.
They're good. They're beautiful. They're all beautiful.
Yeah, I just think shorter,
Mm-hmm.
smaller pieces work well.
Miniatures, yeah.
Yeah, and I think with Album for the Young, there's such specific titles. Sorry, I lagged. But there's some really specific titles, and it might be easy for children to enter, like have an entry point, even before you have to explain anything, because they can just see the title. Or without the titles, they can still. It's easier to connect with those sounds, and I think it would be a good conversation or story starting kind of piece. And
Yeah, beautiful. And then the Miglos Rocha.
So this piece, the Toccata Capricciosa, is a personal favorite of mine. It's, as it stands, there is no viola transcription. I'm currently working on one. It's very difficult to do just because of, the cello has 6 octaves, the viola has 4, so which parts do you write in what octave? But as to why I think this piece would be effective, it's solo, so there's intimacy there, but I suppose this is a solo concert, so I don't know how relevant a point that is. I guess it's, I would say overall it's pretty high energy, because what I'm trying to do is equate what a pop song does for a lot of people. Like on a stage, if you go to a Taylor Swift concert, there's like an energy there. It's exciting, it's electrifying. And I think this piece is electrifying. It's almost like there's a chorus that comes back, sort of. I think the structure is similar.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think the biggest pull factor would be this electrified atmosphere I hope to create in this piece.
Cool. What is that chorus that comes back? Can you play it?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm still writing the first page.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
It's the plucking part, the bump 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 bump, and then the very large it comes back in the end. And then it builds up to a climactic finish with like similar themes and patterns from the beginning.
Okay. Cool. Cool. So you got some pits to work with. That's nice. All right. So with each of these pieces, what we're going to try to do now is based on these entry points that you've been identifying or talking about a little bit, and thinking about the moment just before you play your piece. And Christina, maybe just pick one of the Album of the Young miniatures. Just pick one for now. And so what I'd like you to do is simply, I'm going to ask you to write a script for exactly what you would say to your audience in the living room or in the, I don't know, it could be in the cafeteria or wherever it is in the school or in the classroom, you, Elliot, wherever you think you want it to be, right? But I want you to write the script, right, for that. And we're going to do this actually in breakout rooms. So Matthew and Carly, I'd like you to be in one, and then Elliot and Christina, we'll put you in the others. I think, Carly, you're probably the host, right? Are you the host of this meeting?
Matthew is, but
Oh, Matthew is. Matthew, you can do the breakout rooms, right? That's fine. If you need help, let me know. Oh, you haven't done breakout rooms before? Oh, you want to make me, if you make me the co-host, I can do it. And essentially, I want you to work on a script. You might just spend a little time, you can be quiet. You can just turn off your mics if you want to for a little bit and just be quiet and write. But practice it with each other, right? Practice saying it each other, and then you'll bring it back into here, and we'll hear all of them, all 4 of them. Okay. Yeah. All right. So now I am a co-host, and hold on one second. So we'll put Carly and in room 1, right? And then we're going to put Christina and Elliot in room 2. And then, actually, Matthew, you'll just go into room 1. You'll see how that works. So there's an invitation. We're going to take, it's now almost 5 o'clock. We're going to take, let's take 7 minutes to do this, okay?
Sure.
7 minutes. Think of exactly what you're going to say before this piece.
Interesting. Okay.
Hello.
I don't know how recording works for breakout rooms, but I guess we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'm just going to assume that all of it is recorded anyway.
Okay.
Do you want to go first, or do you want to like brainstorm, or want me to go first?
Brainstorm. Yeah, I mean, if I'm actually going to be using that audience, I would probably just go in and ask them a question. Like, I don't know what would be better, because it's a strange concept to introduce to someone. I'm sure they've all experienced it and they'll be able to relate to it, but I'm not sure like what one thing to say concisely that'll help them get it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could do some kind of "Have you ever," and then
Yeah.
you can say like, "Oh, have you ever?" I don't know. Have you ever wanted to tell someone you love them, or have you ever like gone through the motions? Well, Liggity did, and here's what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of just treating the Toccata Capricciosa just like a pop song. Just gonna say like, "Hey guys, thanks for coming out tonight. This a tune by a Hungarian songwriter, Miklos Rozsa."
Mm-hmm.
Just start playing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one approach. That doesn't really engage them in any way. It's just a different way of introducing the piece.
No, I'd have to. Sorry, go ahead.
Is he just wanting us to write introductions now? I think that's not the script of the whole performance.
Just like what you would say right before you play this piece.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I guess think about it this way. What does that get them to listen for in the music or pay attention? Like, how is that an entry point? I mean, you're introducing it more like a pop song, but when you think about pop singers, if it's someone at a Taylor Swift concert, for example, it's going to be like Abby or someone who is absolutely already in love with her and knows all of her songs. So a lot of times they don't even have to introduce the song. They just start singing and the audience is like, ah, and you start singing along.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm thinking now, like, this.
What is it's like Booth says, what is sexy about the piece or hot or whatever? Like, what do you want them to pay attention to? Because it's probably not that Rozsa wrote it because no one cares.
Right, it
I
sounds
know
like
you care, but
sounds like an epic guitar solo. So
sounds like an epic guitar solo. Okay, that could get somewhere.
like if I market this as like the progenitor guitar solo.
But is that why it's cool? Is it cool because it's a viola sounding like a guitar, or is it cool in its own right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, I get it, but just trying to think of what would be the best way to introduce that.
Maybe I could play bits of like, no, because this is right before you play the piece. I was thinking like, oh, maybe I can play bits of Thunderstruck or like popular guitar solos and explain the techniques. And then play bits of Toccata Capricciosa that have the same techniques and say, this is the guitar solo.
You're playing for college students, right?
Yeah.
Like non-com people. Where would you be for the
Where would
concert?
I be? Probably Club Down Under, maybe.
Club Down Under? Okay. Like an open mic or like your own thing?
Probably, it'd probably have to be an open mic. It can't be my own thing right off the get-go. I just wonder how much time I'd have.
I think you need to explain that when we're talking about the script, because that wasn't covered originally. And also, he's not going to know what Club Down Under is. And I'm not even sure, because I've never been there, but if you explained it, I'm sure.
It's huge. It's like, it was the place, but the union's torn down.
How big of an audience would you get usually for something like that?
Open mics? Gosh. Maybe 75, 100 people.
Okay. Okay. I mean, with that in mind, what you described as the introduction could work. I don't know if it's the best way to do it, but when you're talking to college students, they don't really care what you're doing or what you have to say about it necessarily, unless you're going to connect some kind of meaning to it. I just don't know that much about the history of the piece, but if there was something, like if I were going to play Ligeti for that, I would talk about the unrequited love in college thing, because that's something that would probably be an entry point for a lot of students in the audience.
Right, but I mean that's absolute. This is a showpiece, so I don't know if there's a whole lot of deeper meaning other than how it sounds. It's like
yeah.
In that respect.
In that case, it's more of a matter of just dazzling with the technique and showing them how cool it sounds. And did you guys know viola could do this? Probably not. And in those instances, it's maybe better to I would maybe even just go up there and start playing and not say anything to them, or just acknowledge them in some way that involves as little talking as possible. Like maybe just look out at them and say hello. I don't know, something like that.
Hello.
Well, not literally, but
Yeah.
just introduce yourself or whatever people do at an open mic.
Yeah. I'm Matthew, and this is my viola.
But something to think about is people do all sorts of things at an open mic, but usually it's like reciting poetry or singing an original song or a cover of a song or something. So you're going to be doing something kind of unusual. So with that in mind, how would you try to preface it?
I mean, I just acknowledge it. Like, this isn't your typical open mic fair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if that's a bad thing, really. I think I can still get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Hypothetically, of course, this building doesn't exist.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Club Down Under still does stuff. I just don't know where it is or what exactly. Didn't they have Jacob Collier last year or something? Like,
This is news to me.
yeah. I know Bryce saw the Facebook post because he liked it or something, or I think I remember talking to him about it. I don't know if he ended up watching it. I have another friend who's like in a local band, but not in the comm, who watched it. But anyways, as far as the script, yeah, I think that actually makes a lot more sense than just introducing what the piece is as being like, this isn't your standard open mic fair, because they're all going to be like, oh, what does that mean? And then they're going to listen to, and they're going to be listening to the ways in which it's different, which, I mean, predominantly being you're playing viola, but also like, whoa, I didn't know viola could sound like that. I think that's a good approach to take.
Okay. Let's focus on you now.
Okay. Well, yeah, because I have like 1 minute, but I think I have it. I would just go up there and ask them the question and start a dialogue and like get all of their responses, because it might be 4 people, it's probably not going to be a very big audience, but I would just talk to them for a bit first and then explain how their experiences relate to the piece and then play it.
Okay, so you're looking at like a priming kind of deal?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And there's that intimacy there anyway, so you can have a conversation. And
yeah, exactly. It'd work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Are we good? Should we return to the room now?
Yeah.
All right.
How do I leave the? Oh, okay.
Now we're alone in the main meeting. I wonder where Cabannis is. He must be in the room with the other guys.
I think we were supposed to stay. I think he was supposed to join us.
Oh, well, he can just come back because he's going to realize the room doesn't exist.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. No, I can still join it. I can see that they're all active in breakout room 2.
What if we go in their breakout room? I don't think he wants us to do this, though.
No.
We can't, actually. Okay, never mind.
Well, I'm I guess I'll stay here.
Mm-hmm. I hear your fan again.
You hear my computer fan?
Mm-hmm. Mm,
Oh, I didn't know my fan was in E flat. Okay.
it is at least through my computer. I have had Zoom experience where it pitched my voice down, and no one realized that because they didn't know me. But then I played my cello, and they were like, "Why are you out of tune?" It's like it's not out of tune. It's just Zoom pitching everything. He did say we were only supposed to do that for 7 minutes, right? Did I just not follow directions? Because I thought that's what he said.
Yeah, it was only it's after 5:90. I think you were right.
Okay, they're just slow then. That's okay.
I set my noise suppression to medium. Can you still hear it?
It's better. I think it's fine.
Okay. That was so funny during the improv. I could not hear a thing. I feel bad for people watching this in the future.
Well, they're going to realize it just sounds chaotic and they can skip it and it'll be fine. But it was kind of fun. When we were all playing, though, that was just like I couldn't hear what the bass line was or what anyone was like. I'm like, this would probably sound good if it was synced up, but it's not. So,
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
hello.
I was just listening to theirs, so.
Ah.
Cool. How'd you do? How'd it go, Matthew and Carly?
I think it went pretty well.
We have our intros. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, why don't we start with you then, if you don't mind? Either of you could go first, but just remind us of the piece, and then and kind of give us your script, and then we can. It'd be great to hear.
Okay. Well, mine's pretty. I think mine's pretty quick, so I'll just go first. So my piece is Micro Service Toccata Capricciosa, and the idea is to go to Club Down Under, which is like a bar it was at the student union, but the student union is being rebuilt, but it's like this basement level bar that you have to take stairs to on campus at school. And I would treat it like a pop song sung at like an open mic, in the sense that I wouldn't have this big long introduction, like I would explain, like, oh, these are the techniques that.
No, it's like more like a comedian, right? Giving the setup. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I do is I'd say, I'm Matthew, and what you're about to hear is in typical open mic fare. For one, I have a viola, and for another, I'm playing this crazy piece. So the goal there is to generate interest. So I'm thinking this is a showpiece, and I think it's most akin to like a guitar solo. I think this is the progenitor guitar solo. So I think the entry point and the meaning is there. About the history of the work, I don't know if there's some profound spiritual meaning that Roja ascribed to the piece, but overtly it's how it sounds. So I'd like to convey that by doing as little talking as possible and just letting the sounds speak for themselves.
Okay, that's great. So Matthew, I'm going to ask you to do it again, but this time no narration, no macro, discussion of your goals or anything like that. Just, literally, I want you to walk up to the mic, right, and give us that very, very little bit that you're imagining. So it doesn't have to be much, but let's just do that without the commentary, okay?
Hey guys, I'm Matthew, and What you're about to hear is not your typical open mic fare.
Beautiful. All right, that's great. Do it one more time. And here, just because we have the opportunity, right? So we're on Zoom, right? So now you know it's the green light on your laptop, wherever the camera is, right? Is it green light?
Okay, yes.
Where's your camera? Where's your camera?
Here.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I want you to look right at camera eyes. We call this camera eyes, right? Do exactly what you did, but now right into the camera. And yeah, you can even get a little closer if you don't mind. There you go, right there.
Hey guys, I'm Matthew, and what you're about to hear is not your typical open mic fare.
Nice, yay! Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Matthew. That's great. Carly, your turn.
So you don't want any macro, you just want me to do it like that?
Well, eventually. I mean, you know, if you want to, whatever. I mean, Matthew was also giving us some background on what he was trying to accomplish, but it's up to you. But eventually, I'm going to ask you to do it as you know, you're in front of your audience. Yeah.
Well, the idea with a group home is it's a small group of people, you know, it's a more intimate setting.
Yeah.
So I would go in and just ask them a question that relates to the piece in some way. Like, have you ever had a time when you were having a conversation in your head with someone else, you know, imagining that, something along those lines, and then just have a discussion with them before I play the piece, like go around, say it's maybe 4 to 10 people or something like that, and give a couple of people a chance to answer. And then depending on their answers, tie it back into the story of the piece somehow, and then start playing it.
Beautiful. So let's do that. Here we have 4 people, and you're leading us. So you can ask us that question, and we can respond to it, and we can have a little conversation. And then this is be good practice, because then you'll see how you're going to tie our answers back into the piece. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Yeah. So you're you know, this is your group. It's Elliot and Tom and Matthew and Christina. We're just here. So.
Have you ever had something you felt was important that you wanted to tell someone, but you felt like you couldn't say it to them?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have, yeah.
Yeah. Would you mind sharing what that is?
Yeah. So just recently, I was talking with a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, and it was really clear to me that she was being like exceptionally stubborn in the situation with another friend of ours, and yet we were all together, and so I couldn't really say, it was not the right moment to say it, but I kept having that conversation in my mind, like what I was going to say to her, like basically, would you like ease up? Would you chill out? You know. It wasn't the right moment, you know, to do it. But all that conversation was definitely going on in my head. I didn't want her to be so stubborn.
So you were thinking of what you wished you could say to her, but you didn't say it.
Exactly.
How about anyone else? Can anyone else relate to that? Want to say anything?
I have this friend that was going through an online relationship that was clearly a scam, and I wanted to tell this person so many times that he needed to be careful, and he was, in the end, it was not good, and this person broke up and ended up like taking some money. But this whole time I was trying to tell them that they need to respect themselves and they need to build their self-confidence and just try not to be so reliant on someone's attention. And it was hard to say that to someone who was clearly really lonely and yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I also did. I was in Naples recently visiting my dad, and so I'm trying to think of a great way to say this, but like his romantic history hasn't been the greatest, and we had a conversation, you and I, about his current girlfriend, who's an absolute gem. But he was concerned that like I didn't show any affection for her at all. Whereas she completely adores me and my sister. She's wonderful. But it's just like I can't really say that, well, I feel this way because of all of your other previous relationships that ended so terribly for you and for me and my sister that have had like intense psychological consequences on members of your family. I can't say that to him because he's a bad father, and I couldn't be further from the truth. It's just something I've hardened my heart to that I really can't ever talk to him about.
Sure. You haven't said anything, Elliot. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I was just trying to think of a moment where I've had a conversation. Well, my grandmother, she recently died of COVID-19 or complications from COVID-19. And she has always been the matriarch of the family. And in doing so, her qualities didn't necessarily collide with the fact that she was the matriarch, but she had a very narcissistic character. And so it was just hard for her to really understand the emotions that her 6 children were all going through. One left the family, one left the family for a short while, but came back, after she died. And then one is dealing with a mental disorder in Hong Kong. And so I had this, I had made this goal of talking with her about this when she came back to the United States from the Philippines, but it was too late and she had passed away. And so I just can recall times where I've imagined myself being with just her one-on-one, like I've done multiple times, and just talking to her about the truth and what is it that's lacking in her that's causing the family to butt heads. And so now that she's gone, I can only just imagine me having conversations with her about this, real authentic ones that I've never had with her before.
Yeah. I see. And as you guys are probably seeing, this is something a lot of people have dealt with. And in fact, in the music I'm about to play, this is something the composer, Georgie Ligeti, was dealing with, all of these themes of love and trying to deal with that sense of loneliness and having those conversations in your head, but maybe not being able to have them in real life because you feel you can't, or maybe in the case it's too late. Because the reason he wrote it, what the music conveys, is his desire for a cellist. He was infatuated with the cellist that he studied at music school with, but he felt he could not tell her. So this music sounds like what he was feeling as he was imagining those conversations in his head.
Yay! Nice intro. I mean, first of all, you drew out beautiful stories from everybody, and I thought the way you were able to link it back to the piece was terrific. I mean, I'm ready to hear the piece now.
All right.
Right? That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks everybody for sharing too. That was very lovely of you.
Yeah.
Share those very personal stories. So.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Elliot, Christina, who should go next?
I can go next.
Okay.
So this is for little kids and their families. I want you all to think about your closest friend or one of your closest friends, whether it's your mother, your father, maybe your cat or dog, or just a stuffed animal. Little Carly, pretend you're a little girl. Who's your closest friend?
My dog, Ellie.
Oh. Now, I want you to imagine that they've caught the flu, and they're feeling just a little sad. They're lying on their bed, and they have a little furrow in their brow. You're sitting next to them on their bed, and you're holding their hand, and you're letting them know that it's going to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
Play, play, play.
Great. And which piece is it?
It's called The Sick Doll.
The Sick Doll. Great. Beautiful. That's great. I love, and Christina too. I mean, I wonder if somehow dropping the title in just before you play might help make the connection, with what Carly was, because Carly had a great, offering, and maybe if you can connect it to the title too, that, maybe that would, I don't know, bring it home in a little, in a way. That's great. Terrific. Okay, Elliot.
I want you to close your eyes. Your eyes. Now take 3 deep breaths. Now, imagine yourself in this vast, empty space. It is completely dark and nothing can possibly be seen in this void of emptiness. Nothing is touchable. Nothing is to be seen. Nothing is to be heard. Now suddenly, you see this flash of light that occurs for about 5 seconds. And just so you think that it's at its most vulnerable state, you reach out to touch the light. But just when you think you're about to touch it, it disappears quickly. And then you're disappointed that there's no more light. But then it comes back again, but at a much dimmer state than before. You start to wonder what's going on. So you start to reach out for it again. You reach and you reach, but then it disappears once again. You are much more disappointed that you didn't have that chance to touch this light. A few seconds later, you see the light once more. And is at a very, very dim state, much like a gaslit candle that you see far, far away. There's no hope in grabbing this though. So you just keep your hand to yourself, and then the light goes away. But suddenly, you feel an odd presence. And then you see this light slowly emerging, much like how a big orchestral sound emerges from a crescendo. It gets brighter and brighter and brighter. It gets so overwhelmingly bright that you have a hard time seeing. You're using both of your hands to block out your eyes. Then once it's at its brightest, and you can't take it anymore. And then it vanishes quickly from you. That's it.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I love this. This is a really fun exercise to do. You probably want to do something, Elliot, at the end just to bring people back. Even if it's simply just reminding them that they can open their eyes. And some little relationship to then. I'm about to play for I'm about to play for you the Toccata and Fugue, by Bach, and you can whatever you want to say, whatever little connector to just bring it back to the piece itself. But that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So 4 very, very different ways of introducing a piece, right? If you remember where we started with Matthew, it's just like, here it is. It's really, really simple, right? But really makes sense given the audience that you have, at the student union or the bar or wherever it might be. And And I love the fact that with Christina's, for instance, that we got into pets and dolls and, all the stuff of childhood. That's really, really great. So when making a solo interactive experience like this, these are the things you want to think about. You want to think about what's the collaboration moment, how can you introduce the pieces in ways that are friendly and are imaginative and inviting, but that also, like with Carly's, that can take you to a deep place. Sometimes that's where you want to go, to a more difficult or deep place, because that's what the music is asking of you, right? So the repertoire is always going to sort of determine what that entry point is, but you want to be thinking about what those introductions are, what that collaborative moment is, and also, as we were talking, like what the arc is, right, of the program. So it's also, how does the program itself build? Where would you place? For instance, Carly, where would you imagine this Ligeti going on your concert? Is it at the beginning, in the middle, towards the end? Where do you think the Ligeti might land in a solo event like this?
Probably at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd prefer to have that kind of conversation at the beginning, just so they feel involved in that.
Nice. And Matthew, yours is kind of a one-off, right? Because you're part of like the open mic experience.
Yeah, if this were to be in a concert, I'd also have it in the very beginning. I would fight it being the first thing on the program.
An opener, yeah,
It's
an
like
opener.
a shock and awe kind of deal.
And Christina, where would you place your album for the young?
Well, if it was for kids, I think I would just play the whole set by itself because it's pretty long. Or I would just pick certain excerpts and then I would try to end with something that's more exciting or on a happier note.
Nice. And then Elliot, where do you think yours would go, your toccata and fugue?
I'm thinking either at the very beginning or the second piece on the program that's after a short introductory piece.
Uh-huh. Cool. Yeah, maybe there's an appetizer before the toccata and fugue, especially if you're going to do this kind of, imaginative exercise with them. I think that's a good idea, maybe, to have something up front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts or questions about, putting together a program like this? These are all exciting ideas, you guys.
So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Christina. I'm just curious about your own process in introducing and sorting your own works on a concert.
Yeah, it's very similar. For instance, I have a solo piece that I do. It's a piano piece. It's called Sketches of the Nask. They're all miniatures, and they have to do with a travel that I took in the south of France. And each of the pieces is about some little experience that I had. And when I do the piece for audiences, if it's an informal enough kind of experience, I absolutely will, take a moment before each one to talk about the inspiration and some little anecdote. Let's see. I think I actually, because I was thinking about this. Yeah. So, for instance, here this is scripted, so I'm going to read it to you. But I would say, "Good evening. I'm Thomas Cabannis. I'm the composer of the piece that you're about to hear. Several years ago, my wife and I traveled to the south of France, and we spent some time in a tiny village called Venasque. It has a beautiful view of Mont Ventoux, where Petrarch scaled the summit to proclaim his love for Laura. And while we were there, I wrote this piece. The French refer to the moment that is just before dawn as l'heure bleue, or the blue hour. It's a moment of stillness and utter silence just after the night birds stop their singing. There's a long pause in the music too, but the piece isn't over. There'll be this pause. The silence precedes the appearance of the morning birds. And if our trip to France sounds idyllic, it was, But those morning birds for me actually started up annoyingly early. I hope I've got them coming in at just the right moment for you. Here is the Blue Hour. I hope you enjoy it. And then I would play the piece. So that's an example of, a little bit of an intro to one of those miniatures. Is that helpful, Matthew?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Christina, what were you going to say before?
I was just wondering about your opinion on students in the university setting trying to do their degree recital with a collaborative element, because I know that's not very common.
Huh?
And I'm
It
wondering.
would be cool, right? But it would be cool, right? Yeah. I mean, I know at Juilliard, we started requiring our students to introduce their pieces verbally before they played them. And that made a big shift, and people had to get coaching, and there was a whole bunch of other things that had to happen to make that happen. Juilliard has not moved into the interactive, world yet. They're still a little shy about that, but it could be in the future. And but my answer would be yes. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, you guys should start doing it, because I'm not in school anymore.
Oh, Christina, you're out. You're finished. Yeah.
If we can make it happen, we will.
There you go.
Yeah, it's our recital. What are they going to do? Say no?
Right.
I have a question, and it's about an article that we read, and I believe it was written by you, but I'm not quite sure. Carly,
It was.
okay. It wasn't the one on improvisation. It was the one that was online. It was a website.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was Chamber Music America.
Yeah. So I'm kind of glad you mentioned Claire Bryant, because we actually did this activity with her where she showed us all these pieces of abstract or avant-garde pieces of like art.
What?
And she would ask us to take a minute to write down observations of the piece or of the piece of art, and then she would play a piece of music after each one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also a contemporary piece. And so like I just found that it was interesting that you included her in the article.
Yeah.
But my question is pertaining to music education, because we go to a school that, like Carly mentioned, it's highly emphasized on music education. And a lot of my colleagues, at least in that field, they have their internship like coming up this year. And so I've often heard that this is from their colleagues, and it's sad to hear this, but I'm just going into music education because it pays decently. Even though like I like music performance, but I'm doing ed instead. And so I just wanted to ask, like, because you mentioned that music education should be for the if I had the article pulled up, but it's for the community, for strengthening the community, and it shouldn't be for music education itself. So I was just wondering, like, if that makes any sense at all. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that.
Well, look, I mean, the thing about life choices is that's life choices. Like what you want is stability in your life as a musician, and you want to make sure that your life has a predictable schedule, and you come home at the same time every day, and you have health insurance benefits. Then you of course pick a job that makes sense. And I love teaching music to kids in schools. It's a great thing to do, and it has along with it those benefits, those fringes in a way. But I don't know. That's never been a concern of mine. I've always wanted to continue my practice as an artist, as a composer, and so a job that was like that was never kind of in my in my sights. So, but it's a personal choice, right? I mean, you know, there's less stability if you're a performing musician and you're, you know, gig reliant. And when you run into a time like the pandemic, like that's a real crash, right? I mean, you don't have the same kind of institutional support that you might otherwise. And so there is a risk. There's no question about it. I've always just wanted to take the risk personally, but that, again, sort of a personal thing. I mean, I think that what music teachers provide in schools is irreplaceable. I mean, my music teacher at my school is the person who got me into music. And it wasn't my private teachers, actually. He was my middle school music teacher, and then became my high school chorus teacher, and he was amazing, you know. And so the way in which music programs can bolster community, I do think is amazing and important. You know, what I try to do in my own work is to support music teachers who are doing that work by doing, you know, workshops on musical creativity with them, in giving them different ways to approach their work so that they can be satisfied and happy in the work that they're doing. So I guess I don't think it's an either or thing. Maybe in some other life I would have been a music teacher in a public school, but, you know, just wasn't in the cards for me. I don't know, Elliot, if that's helpful or not, but
Yes, thanks.
sure. And Claire Bryan is terrific.
Yeah, she's quite the character. Yep.
Yeah, and she's at USC now, right? She's at the University of South Carolina now. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anything else, y'all?
Yeah, I just had one question, and I'm curious about your approach to planning interactive concerts. How do you decide whether, when you're programming something, to just play through the whole work or a whole movement or whatever, or to break it up more, whether that means just cutting out parts of it or stopping and talking about something?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, we do, you know, at Carnegie Hall in our Link Up series, we've traditionally done the opening movement of the Beethoven 5, and you know, you can do it with repeats or without. We never had a problem about not doing the whole symphony. Of course, we just were doing the first movement, and we also did both things. We didn't do the repeats, and we made a cut, right? So in relationship to that, like the real question is, like, can we give students the experience of the opening movement of the Beethoven 5 and do it in, you know, 4.5. The answer to that question was yes, we could. But I don't know how. I mean, to say, I guess in each case, the criteria have to be applied, right? In some instances, you do want to play the whole piece, right? Because it has a certain arc to it, and if you cut it up too much, it starts to lose its drama. It starts to lose, you know, its impact. And in other cases, you know, I know we cut the Tchaik 4 too. You know, final movement. We made a cut in it, and it works fine, is the truth. You know, we can get too precious about classical music too, and so I don't necessarily think you have to be so reverent, especially when you're programming for younger people. You know, so I don't know. Does that help, Carly?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so what's the plan for tonight? What's going on?
I think this meeting has inspired me to work on my transcription of the Toccatas, so I'm gonna jump on that.
Nice.
After this.
I'm gonna practice my scales because I haven't practiced violin in almost 2 months.
Uh-oh.
Scales would be good.
That's what happens when you're doing, I guess, conducting and studying scores and vacationing in summer and procrastinating.
Elliot, who are you studying conducting with?
I study with Dr. Jimenez, who's the director of orchestras at FSU, and I usually during the summer or winter I study with Miguel Hartbedoya.
Oh, fabulous. He's great. I love Miguel.
Oh yeah, he's great.
terrific.
I just have some practicing to do. I'm heading to a summer festival at the beginning of August, so just getting ready for that. A lot of performing, a lot of master classes.
Cool. Where's that, Carly?
It is the Vivace Festival, and it's in Wilmington, North Carolina.
All right. Beautiful. Get some time at the beach, I hope.
I hope so. That's not guaranteed, though.
I know. And Christina, what's up tonight?
I'm gonna go walk my dog because I'm vacationing. I'm going to Interlaken next week,
Oh, great.
but I haven't gotten the music, so I can't practice.
All right. Well,
Are
I
you
hope.
going there to teach or to play?
I'm doing collab.
Nice.
Interlaken, woohoo!
I went there in high school, so it's a great place.
Yeah. Enjoy. All right, you guys. Well, it's lovely seeing you. Good luck with your interactive work. It all sounds like a very promising and lovely.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much again for carving out 2 hours of your time and joining us today. It's really special to work with you here. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, we greatly appreciate it.
Sure.
And Yuri says hi.
Okay. Yeah. So I say hi back to Yuri. Absolutely. Okay. Take it easy, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Did you want to go?